Hey guys, Taki here. If you like PC gaming, the handheld market has seen a bunch of new competitors in the last year. One of the newer companies in this market has released several models at this point, but today they have a completely new premium tier product that they have just announced, which has some notable changes to things that they've done in the past. Today we're going to take a quick look at the new limited edition AYANEO NEXT Advance. This is a version of Aya's new handheld that is supposed to be limited to 300 units worldwide with some personalization options. A lot of effort seems to have gone into the unboxing experience for the Next Advance. It comes in a huge black box with a smaller clear shell box inside. It is kind of lost on me since I don't typically focus on packaging, but everything here seems well thought out. The version of the device that I have comes with a silver finish, and you can immediately see some of the biggest changes. I'm going to get this device fully set up before we move on. The Next Advance comes with a Ryzen 7 5800U Zen 3 CPU with a Vega 8 GPU. It has 16 gigabytes of LPDDR4X RAM, 2 terabytes of NVMe SSD storage, a 47 watt-hour battery, a 7-inch IPS display with a resolution of 800p, and Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.2 for connectivity. All of this runs on Windows 10. Here's a quick look at the device now that I have it fully configured. The first thing that you'll notice is our 7-inch IPS panel. It's advertised as 500 nits on their website. It has smallish bezels on the top and the bottom, with slightly larger bezels on the left and the right side, just like the original device. We have a set of new analog sticks this time around that we'll look at more in just a moment. This device uses a white conductive rubber D-pad, and the bottom buttons have been cut down to 2 sets of 2. The ABXY buttons also use conductive rubber this time around, and we have a new set of analog R2 and L2 buttons. The new magnetic sensor for the analog stick is one of the notable changes in this new device. The new sensor should mean that we have significantly better accuracy and precision when it comes to things like FPS games. The range of motion is greatly improved over the AYANEO, and hopefully we don't have to worry about the dreaded drift problem since we pull for input in a completely different way that is not prone to wear and tear. Under the right analog stick is a big function button that replaces a smaller one in the Neo. This calls up the Aya Space application that allows you to do some quick actions, which we will look at in the OS section of this video. The final button on the front is a Task Manager button. Here are some sound recordings of the new buttons. Our new analog trigger buttons are the next biggest change on this device. R2 and L2 use a magnetic sensor, which should have all of the same benefits as the joysticks. These new buttons make a big difference when you're playing something like driving games, where you can fully use the added control. R1 and L1 have also been changed to chunkier buttons that are easier to use and press than the old ones. We still have a big fan exhaust on the top, but they removed one of the USB Type-C ports. We still have a headphone jack, volume buttons, and a brand new fingerprint sensor on the power button. Here are some sound recordings of the new buttons. On the bottom, we have speaker holes for our stereo speakers. We will have some audio tests of these in just a moment. We also have another Type-C port here, which seems ready for a dock, but one doesn't exist right now. You'll notice that the front and the back shell are two completely different colors on this device. I don't know if this is going to be like this on the retail versions or not, because this device that I have here is made from CNC and it's not injected. I actually think that the back color looks better than the front. I don't care for this fake metallic paint. I don't want to spend too much time going over the finish because this can change when the real injected shells are painted, but the paint here is nice if you like this style. There's also a metallic finish on the joysticks that I don't like. I wish that these were either gray or black. On the back, you can see our circular exhaust port with the AYANEO brand on the right, and the screen printing for your gamer tag if you buy one of these limited edition units. The third biggest change on this device is the new ergonomic grip, and these have one benefit beyond the improved feeling that I've found so far. On the original device without these grips, it was possible for my fingers to reach the air vent on the back, which could be annoying at times. With this added grip rest, I don't find that my fingers ever get close to the vent hole while holding the device. The panel that they're using in the Next Advance is the same one that they've used in all of their Aya devices, and I know some people were hoping that they would at least use something like an OLED panel for this new release. The default color temperature on this panel is not exactly how I like it to be, but this is fully customizable inside the GPU software, so I've gone ahead and changed the color temperature. I think the screen is great for media consumption and gaming. What you are seeing now is exactly how the screen looks like to me in person. The new fingerprint sensor is a cool quality of life addition to the device. The unit will completely turn on and log into your Windows account with a light press of the top button. I want to fully show this off, so first I'm going to put the device to sleep by pressing the right side of the fingerprint sensor. Once the fan shuts off, I'm going to gently press my finger on the left side and keep it there long enough for the fingerprint sensor to register. As you can see, the process is pretty fast. Next, I want to show off the cold boot time on this device. I'm going to press the power button once and put my finger on the fingerprint sensor so the login action happens as fast as possible. As you can see, it is very fast. Now the Ryzen 5800U does not have the RDNA GPU that a lot of people have been waiting for, but it does have a beefy CPU that should be good enough for demanding emulation and some other situations. This is the only Ryzen 5000 series mobile chip that I own, but I do own a mini PC with a Ryzen 7 5700G that we can use for comparison since it also has a Zen 3 chip with the same maximum GPU speed of 2 GHz. It has a higher boost clock as well as a higher TDP, but it will be interesting to see how far the Next can get when we manually change the TDP to an absurd level. First, let's look at some Geekbench 5 scores. I tested this at 45 watt TDP just to see how far we can push things, and I managed to get a multi-core score of 7412. If we drop down to 20 watt TDP, our single core score is basically the same, but our multi-core score drops to 6321. 15 watt TDP is near the best TDP for this device, and you can see that our single core performance is still pretty decent with a multi-core score that is not that far from 20 watts. 8 watt TDP is like the bare minimum that I would use on this device due to the GPU frequency, but we still have decent single core performance. On the 5700G and the Minisform X500 at default settings, we can get a single core score of 1407 and a multi-core score of 7955. I also went ahead and did some time spy tests at different TDPs. You can see the scores with the listed TDP on screen. I also wanted to take a quick look in this video at the fan noise under different workloads. I have the TDP for these sections listed in the corner of your screen. Before moving on, I want to do a test of the new speakers that they're using because they state that these are using a new sound chamber which produces better bass frequencies. The maximum volume seems to be much better than the old AYANEO from last year, and the lower frequencies seem to be improved. They could still benefit from some DIY EQ balancing. I still need more time with the device to do a full breakdown on the battery life in different situations, but I do want to cover the charging speeds with the included adapter. The Max comes with a 65 watt-hour charger in the box, and the thing that I like about it is that this charger supports USB Type-C and USB Type-A output. If we use the device while charging, we can see that we are able to charge the unit at 20 watts at the same time that we're consuming around 27 watts. If we look at my meter, we can see a reading of over 50 watts with the screen on. If we sleep the device, we can see that we're charging at 27 watts, which is decent considering that the battery is almost fully charged at this point and the charging speed is still high. Let's take a brief look at the custom software on the Next Advance. The ISpace software has a few interesting features if you haven't seen it before. Here we are in the main window. I'm just going to go over to the game section since it is already ready to go. This is a 2TB SSD, which is stupid high storage for a device like this. I've already installed 1.7 terabytes worth of games at this point, and you can see that there's a big collection here with their box art and some other graphic elements automatically added to the system. If we head over to the Assistant section, we have some system stats, and we also have a section where we can fully customize some of the hardware on this device. Here we can calibrate the joysticks, but the UI needs to be improved. And we also have the ability to fully customize the feedback of our vibration motors. This is set to strong right now, but I'm going to change it to the second option because that better suits my needs. Vibration is really good on this device. You can also see that this device has a macro function, which does not work for me, but I have seen it work in person. You'd hold down on the two shoulder buttons and press the D-pad buttons to execute some quick actions. If we go to the back, you can customize the TDP for the custom setting. I have this set to 8 watts to have something quiet at night. For my testing, the best TDP is 13 watts, so 15 and 11 watts are decent default options. Before we jump into the PC tests, I want to explain the stats that you'll see on screen so you can better understand what this device is doing and how it's operating. You will always see the FPS at the top of your screen, the RAM usage, and the CPU and GPU frequencies. Near these are their temperatures and their load percentages. Under this, you'll see the TDP of the system listed after CPU, with the GPU usage included in this total. They pull at different rates, so you might see the GPU usage higher than the CPU at times. I had the device plugged in for all of the gaming footage that you're about to see, but the TDP was set to the 20 watt game setting. This provides you with about an hour and a half of battery life at max brightness. First up for the PC test, we have Final Fantasy 15 running at 720p with the average preset. With these settings, we're floating at around 30 FPS, but I could have dropped this to the lowest setting for around 40 to 45 FPS. In my opinion, it's not worth the drop in quality for this game.
Pronto, you alright?
Next up, we have Control at 800p. This game runs between 30 and 60 FPS depending on what's happening.
The job. Janitor's assistant.
Sekiro runs well at 720p low. The game did not want to go full screen, so we're sitting in windowed mode right now. With these settings, we're able to hit 60 FPS in some areas, with drops to the 40s in combat. Doom Eternal runs very well at 800p low settings with a 100% resolution scale. This is a good use case for the new analog sticks, even though I tend to favor a mouse and keyboard for FPS games. We float around 50 to 60 FPS in combat and over 60 FPS in other areas. No Man's Sky runs well at 800p with around 60 FPS. Craftopia runs at around 30 FPS at 720p using the standard preset. I could have dropped these settings further for more FPS, but this is good enough for me. Death Stranding is a fairly demanding game, even with this newer chip. Here we are at 720p low settings, with the FPS in the mid-30s to 40s. We see similar performance on Horizon Zero Dawn 800p, all low settings. We could get more performance for both of these games if we dropped the screen resolution, but I did not want to sacrifice picture quality. And finally, we have Hades, which runs very well at 800p. Anyway, that's going to be it for this first look, focusing on the big changes on the Next with a small sample of PC game footage. In my next video, I'll look at how this holds up when it comes to emulation, especially when compared to the AYANEO from last year. If there's something that you'd like to see in a future video, leave those suggestions down below. Happy gaming, everyone. Taki out.